Hello and welcome to Gardening at 58 North. So in this video I'm going to be planting up my front bed ready for summer. So last year I had giant sunflowers in this bed. I'll show you some photos now so you can see how they looked. They were probably about 4 meters high and they really did give a nice display last summer. But I'm wanting to put some more permanent plants in here now, so what I'm going to be doing is I'm actually going to be putting some giant lilies. I've got a selection of giant lilies which can grow up to 2 or 3 meters in height. Now this will be the first year I'm growing them, so then the bulbs aren't that big. They'll probably only get to about 1.5 meters or so. But I'll show you the bulbs, and the idea is I'm going to leave a little bit of space around this side because I would like at least one sunflower. I'm also going to leave a little bit of space here because I'm going to be walking in and out of here, so I'll likely plant some lilies up here, but mostly on that left hand side because I don't want them too tall at the front. I'll probably get some smaller plants right at the front where the path is, but it's mostly going to be that arch there, and a little bit here it's going to be planted up with giant lilies. So I'll show you the bulbs. They are a little bit bigger than your average lily bulb, but these are still quite young plants, so they'll take a couple of years to get their full size. This is the size of the lily bulb, and these will grow up and flower in this summer. Each one should have several flowers and they should last probably about a month or so. Now because they only do last a month or so, I'm going to want to add some more interest to the front bed, so I'm going to be planting out a load of gladioli. I've got 50 gladioli bulbs here. These are going to be planted along the whole bed just in front of those lilies, just so I can get some display later on in the year. These normally take about 3 months to grow into flowering plants. Now it's a little bit early, it's the end of February, but if I plant these deep enough the frost shouldn't kill them off, and I've got a dry sandy soil, so I know these will survive in my soil even though it's earlier than normal. But these will start growing up probably April, May when it gets warmer. They'll hopefully flower mid to late summer, so that will be a nice display to have. These though, the gladioli, especially, or certainly in my climate where it's cool summer and cold winters, these don't normally survive more than a few years. They tend to get smaller every year and eventually peter out, so these are just temporary. But the lilies, I know lilies will do well in my climate. These will get bigger every single year, and after a year or two they should be getting up to their full size and hopefully growing over 2 meters in height. So I'm going to space them out now and get them set up, but I'll show you some of my other plants that are currently in this bed and how they're doing. Now we did have very cold -15 just a couple of weeks ago, but we're now having some unusual heat wave weather. The temperature this time of year should really be only about 8 degrees, maybe 6 degrees during the day and freezing at night, but it's currently 11, 12. Yesterday was 14, so it's a real heat wave, very unusual weather, especially with it being so cold recently. And that's brought out all the crocuses here. They're always quite early plant crocuses, but this year they're just a little bit earlier. It's normally more March time in my part of the world. I didn't plant these were already in the house, and I'll show you some on the other side. So as you can see, they're coming up quite nicely. I'm going to plant a lot more of these come autumn. These aren't the type that I like though. These are the small variety. The ones I'll be planting are the giant varieties, such as this over here. I find them much bigger, much showier, a lot nicer looking plants. So that's something I'll definitely do late summer or maybe autumn, is plant up a lot of new flowering bulbs for spring. But what I did plant in here are these ornamental kale. These are just kale plants, grew them from seed, and you can see they've got this really lovely colour on them now. They kind of grow dark green, more like this kind of colour at the bottom there over the summer. Then as soon as it starts getting cold, they put on this lovely pink colour. I think the nicest one is probably this one over here. This is grown the largest. You can see it's got some really nice bright pink vibrant leaves on it now. What these will do now it's warmed up is they'll start to flower. Kale, once they've had a winter, they then go into their second year growth, and that's always flowering. So these will jump up. These will probably get to about 1.5 meters in height, some of the larger ones. Smaller ones probably only 1 meter, and these will have nice bright yellow flowers on them. So I'll let these go to seed, even though the leaves will degrade and look worse as they go to seed. These will have some nice flowers. It's also good for the pollinators. So these will be flowering quite early. These will probably flower kind of April, May time. By the time these are over in June, I'll cut them down. The lilies should be starting to come up, and also the gladioli, so these will be a good early plant to have. So I might do these seasonally, but as I say, these only last 1 or 2 years, so I need to remove them once they finish flowering because they'll die after flowering. So I also have some violas. The violas haven't done well. I'm going to leave them for now. We had such a cold winter they didn't flower. If you have a mild winter they can flower throughout the winter, but it was quite cold, so there's not really any with any flowers. There's one back here which does just have a small flower. But say the frost was a bit hard for it. I'm going to leave them, see how they do, but I suspect they'll probably kind of die off in the middle of summer when it gets a bit warmer, and I need to replace them. But hopefully we'll get a nice display from them in the next few months with this warmer weather. And looking at the soil, it's looking quite good at the moment. I did mulch it with grass to keep the weeds down, and there's not too many weeds at all, so I might do a little bit of weeding, but generally it looks like this ground is quite weed free. All the leaves that you do see coming up that look like grass, they're all just those spring bulbs starting to arrive. So I'll do a row of gladioli along the front, and then at the back I'll do lilies because they're so large, and then I'll see how it looks kind of June time. If there's any spaces that I need to fill out with more plants, I can always put in some bedding plants. So that's the tree lilies and the gladioli now planted. So I did plant the tree lilies as deep as I could. The tree lilies, they're very tall, they're some of the tallest lilies you can buy. Because of the height they grow, if you don't plant them deep enough, they don't get the leverage on, they don't get the stability on their stem. They'll easily blow over in the wind. And as this part of Scotland is quite windy, I need to give them that stability, otherwise they'll be blown over in the first storm that we get. So I planted them about 20-30 centimeters deep, which is the deepest that I could plant them with my trowel. Now, the tree lilies, because they're such big bulbs, they shouldn't have a problem going through all that soil, and they'll still easily get to the surface. If you have smaller normal lilies, 15 centimeters, 20 centimeters is probably fine. But with these being tree lilies, I need to get them as deep as I can to give them that stability. But I'll probably also need to give them some kind of stakes or bamboo, because it is so windy in this part of Scotland. They'll still need some sort of protection even with that extra deep planting. And with the gladioli, I only planted them about 10-15 centimeters deep. They're not particularly large gladioli plants, but I still need to make sure they're not too shallow. If they're too shallow, even the gladioli will blown over, so I'll put them about 15 centimeters deep, but I didn't want to go any deeper as they are small bulbs. They're not going to have a huge amount of energy. If I plant them a foot deep, they might actually struggle to get to the surface. So that's all planted for now. I will actually, in another update, talk about these front beds, which are going to be dug over soon and planted out with roses and bedding plants. Now when it comes to these front beds, there's not going to be a whole lot of interest until later in the season. I might do an update later on as part of another video when I'm doing the front beds to show you these kale in flower. They should look quite nice once the yellow flowers are up on them. There's also a nice azalea at the back there, which is going to be coming into flower soon and will look quite nice. But once the kale are finished, the spring bulbs have already finished by then. There's not going to be much flower till mid to late summer, because those tree lilies are quite late flowering. They're very large plants, they need the whole summer really to get up to size and flower. And also with the gladioli, they tend to be quite late in my climate because it's quite cold. So there's going to be this period kind of probably May, June, July where there's not much flowering. So I might try and put something else in there. So there might be an update on that possibly. And the other time I might try and make a video of this front section is I've got a big area of concrete here which I need to plant out with pots and summer flowers, and I'm hoping to get this full of summer bedding. So that'll be another update as well. So that's all for this update, and I'll see you guys in a few months' time.